Recordings.
All right, the February 2024 meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the SWPRD Parks and Recreation District is called to order at 6:02. We have a quorum present. Is there anyone public comment?
No one was wrong.
Has every commissioner reviewed the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any questions or changes to be made? I will entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from January 17th, 2024.
I will second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from the January 17th, 2024 annual meeting and regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Krista, I.
Jake, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And the minutes are approved.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Carrie. Hi, Tom.
Good evening.
Brian, would you lead us through the treasurer's report?
I will, and thank you all for your patience with the financial stuff. Carrie has been doing the work of 5 people to get this audit ready, and so getting the financials out a little extra time, but appreciate that Matt turned it around really quickly when we did. So we'll go over the charts here real quickly. As you can see, we're getting off to a good start. There's a $38,000 favorable for what we had budgeted in overall in January. Excuse me. That one. If you look at the revenue, down slightly from what we projected, but nothing too concerned, because if you turn to the next one and see the expenditures, we're 40,000 favorable there. Part of that is Shelby, the new admin, was budgeted started the year, then started yet, and then part of it just is the haven't spent much, haven't had much time to go shopping. So overall, the budget's off to a good start in 2024. Everything's strong and looking good. I included in any questions about this one? Okay. Scrolling down to the quick. The vouchers, new format for the vouchers. Carrie found out a new way to do it that is more time efficient for her. I think it reads easier. When you look at these now, you'll look at the right hand side there where it says status, where we used to put a little asterisk. Now it says open. Open means that it was not part of what you received on Friday. So these are vouchers that have been added since you found it. So instead of looking for little stars, now we look for the word open. It also has, you can see in the third column, the item account number. That is something that the state auditor specifically said that they would like more accountability for the accounting numbers for this. So putting that on here and having this part of our monthly report will also make the auditor happy. So win-win. Just highlighting, there's not too many of the open ones that are all that exciting. We made a large ARC payment. We also did the funds for requests from the Department of Commerce for a couple $100,000 for some of the invoices we've already paid. So that's a good thing. Outside of payroll, just scrolling down some of these vouchers, a lot of them are just basic maintenance stuff that isn't all that exciting, hardware stores, that kind of thing. We do have, and I'm just scrolling down to find it, the Island County Planning, Community and Development, which 6,300.
Right.
This is also an item that you guys need to vote on later on tonight. So I think at this point we can do one of two things. We can either get to that part of the agenda and vote to approve it, or what I would suggest is you just approve the vouchers, and if for some reason you guys don't approve that at the end, we can edit it as possible. So either way, you guys want to skip to the end and approve. This is something that is required as part of the permit process for the pool. It's over my signing authority. It's the only reason I'm bringing it to you. So
Did everyone have a chance to read that memo? And
yeah.
so I think it makes sense to go ahead and approve that particular expenditure.
Okay.
So that we're done in line.
Yeah.
With
Makes
the
sense.
vouchers instead
That
of.
makes sense. Yeah, part before the horse.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense to me. So if we want to skip to the last agenda item, I'm gonna keep poking my head here to make sure. Yeah, is not trying to join us. Right. Well, this is part of good news is that the Island County has approved the submittal for the master plan development. This is gonna get us going on a lot of our permits. But to get this work started, it's gonna be about $6,300. The reason we put it in the vouchers is just time. If we approve it tonight, we can get a check by next week and get this process going. If you look at the next page on the permit estimates, it kind of outlines what it's for, site plan reviews and the engineering stuff. It's just a lot of it. It's just needed. And so, for this, I would just ask for a motion to approve it, and then we go back to the option. So, 6320.
So I will make a motion to approve the master land development permit, in the amount of $6,320.08.
I will second that.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the master. Oh, you took it away from me. The master land development permit in the amount of $6,320.08. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Krista, aye.
Jake, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion passes.
All right. Then we can go back up to vouchers. Nothing else in the open vouchers really jumped out as payroll was, the Teresa Johnson payment for the CPA. That's the work of the, for the audit that you guys had approved previously. So, unless there's any specific questions about the vouchers, the total amount of vouchers is $189,813.23.
Onward. I'll make a motion to approve the voucher listing at $189,813.23.
I will second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the voucher list in the amount of $189,813.23. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Krista, aye.
Jake, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the vouchers are approved.
Also, and then we put this on your thing too. This is just more of an FYI. Traditionally, the fund balance gets to you guys as part of the board packet, didn't get to you this time. So we just added the fund balance. I put a sheet in front of you just so you have your information. Carrie and I discussed really briefly this afternoon, kind of where the money is. Most of our levy money doesn't start coming in until April, really, starts trickling in between now and then. So based on what we're spending right now, I think we're in pretty good shape, just to make sure that there's no bounce checks between now and then. There will, which there won't. But this is just kind of where the funds are as of the end of January.
I don't know if this is mentioned later, but in March, you'll be approving the amount for the mower. Just $177,000, something like that, $177,000.
And to remind you, this is the mower that you guys approved purchasing as part of the thing, but it's coming. It's coming a little earlier than we thought.
That's good.
Hopefully, it's supposed to come in March. So that'll be a big unit, 171, like Carrie said. So on this crew, we're going to get some use out of it. All right, sorry, that was just an FYI. So you guys have that information.
All right, moving on to the staff report, please.
All right, pretty straightforward staff report this month. Programs and recreation, the Island Nap Club, which I think has got like 14 or 16 kids. It's the new wrestling thing over at the high school that we're running. So real good first response for a new program. Sky is knee deep in basketball. It's going great. He's doing just a great job of coordinating. He's just got such a good personality for the chaos that running the sports league causes. But lots of smiles when I've been out there watching the kids. So kudos to him and the coaches for making it work. Summer activity guide is underway. Scott, there's a new person over at Movie Telecom that he's working with that putting that together. So that should be out probably mid-April. And then dog classes are happening, which is kind of fun. He's also looking at, this isn't in the notes, but we started talking about it today. If you have any comments or thoughts, the music in the park or the concerts in the park. We got the schedule from the conflicting group that we try to balance it.
The street dances.
And because of their Wednesday selections, it won't work for us to have those on Wednesday this year. It'd either be over the 2 board meetings and right before the triathlon. And so we're gonna look at a different date, maybe Monday or Tuesday, doing something different. So when that comes out, we'll let you guys know. That's all right. We'll mix it up a little bit.
Tuesday nights might be a good night.
That's the one really need torch.
Just because there are a couple of trivia things that go on both Mondays and Thursdays, outdoors, and you mentioned the street dances that are on Wednesdays, and then so I don't think there's a ton that goes on Tuesdays.
So that's what Scott was trying to think of. He also mentioned, Carrie also mentioned the ferry on Thursdays. You start getting people coming in for the weekend and wanting to avoid, if you want people coming in for the event. So Sky was like 90% Tuesday. The Monday thing just had Music Monday, had a branding thing. Maybe that,
Yeah,
but that was my thing.
I think, you know.
Tuesdays is probably good. So just a little change this year.
Tap your toes Tuesday.
But you know, my first board meeting in August. Like it. You did good on like no sleep. That's it.
Here, I'll make.
My very first board meeting though, there was a concert in the park, and I said, "God, we're never do that again." You can never have it, so we have a board meeting and a concert at the same time. They never did it, it's just the way the schedule fell.
I met a lot of times.
Yeah, and so anyways, that's good. Facility and grounds, the Max Welton Trail is completed, so Tom and his guys got on that and cranked that quickly.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this more in a second, but the wind phone Trust and Trails is open also.
Did anyone get to go to that at all?
I haven't, I didn't.
You did. Nice, thank you.
There's a really nice, I can send it to you, about a 5-minute YouTube video of the whole thing.
Oh, that would be great.
It was really sweet. Susie did just an amazing job. And I'll show you pictures here in a second. You'll see the result if you haven't seen it. It's really professionally done, and Tom and his crew supported it beautifully. So it's just really it's a good thing. We did interviews for the park fleet technician. That's the new park position. We'll talk about that more in a second. Baseball fields getting ready to go. Sports fields were fertilized for the first time this year. The schedule of this beautiful weather is kind of moving Tom and his crew's schedule around a little bit because normally they're a little more dormant with the growth, but things are starting to grow, so it's got to be done with. And the biggest victory of the week for us was the minivan got detailed. That minivan has got a mildew issue that's been going on like that for years. So we had it professionally detailed for a guy was here for like 4 or 5 hours, very reasonable price. Smells great. Now we just have to monitor to make sure that whatever was causing the trouble was under control. But thank you to Tom for giving us a functioning minivan back.
Did you, try putting any of, yeah, you dry out, okay, thanks, okay. Of course she did.
There's the back seat, my guess is they had kids spilled juice. Something, because we've taken that seat out before, underneath is like nothing. And so there's something in that seat, and then just like the building, this is the wettest, nastiest environment for shade and moisture I've ever seen. And it just sits, it just denses. So we're hoping.
What I found works on our van, those moisture things, yes, but actually just boxes of baking soda. And I
Turn into a brick.
no, you can get ones where you can fold back half of the side and it has like a mesh. And I just taped them underneath the seats, like one under each row. And that kind of does the trick. And it's like,
Yeah. Those are the
$2
refrigerator.
but yeah, the refrigerator freezer boxes, it's like $2 a box and some duct tape. So for $10, just it
We'll
works
see.
for,
Interesting.
if it works for Vanna White, it might work for your van.
Is it for the smell or for the moisture absorption?
Both, kind of both, yeah. Cause we have a 1993 Econoline and or would be on the kayak, so it's an issue.
Interesting. Learning new things. My report, a 2-year financial audit is underway. We are probably maybe about 3 weeks behind what we ideally were hoping for our schedule. So I'll be communicating with Matt and Jim Nelson later this week, but the stuff is in the auditor's hands. It was a huge lift. The complicated part was 2020 because Carrie wasn't in the position she's in. And the CPA that we used, Teresa Johnson, wasn't the CPA that did the 2020. So we have two groups, our new CPA and Carrie, trying to interpret the work from a COVID year where there was already a lot of confusion and people working from home. And it was I would say it was probably, I'm guessing 3 or 4 times more work to do that 1 year than maybe more. So congratulations to Carrie because it's now in the auditor's hands. So what happens now is they spend about 2 to 3 weeks doing it. Then they spend 2 weeks creating a report, and then there's what's called findings, which means issues that they have. They will let us have those findings, and then we've got 2 to 3 weeks to respond to them. So we're into April at some point. I find this is done, but it's there. Accomplishment. I mentioned the dedication of the wind phone, and I'll scroll down to show you the picture here. I think it's a great picture. You see how professionally it was done. There's CC in front of it. The phone inside is bolted down, so people can't just walk away with it. She got a donation from someone for the stained glass, which was a nice last minute. The little plaque inside acknowledging what it is, and also paying a little tribute to her son. But you also look at the ground up there if you haven't had a chance to walk up there. Thomas guys just came and just made a beautiful, professional looking path. It just looks like such a natural part of the park. And then Susie bought a couple plants that go, it's just beautiful. It's worth a trip out there to Trust Land with a nice day. And just Susie did everything she said she was going to do and did it very professionally, which always appreciate these kind of projects. Discussing and looking at a bike rack, maybe at the community park. We're not sure of the need yet. We're kind of assessing the need. A resident brought this up as a possibility of having a bike rack down below. All right. As I mentioned before, we did receive 3 applications, or specifically, but we received 3 applications for the park and fleet technician. The difference in a regular parks position is this person's also going to be kind of the point person for all the mechanical stuff. So things like detailing the van, or if a mower needs to be detailed with Terra Park. We had 3 applications. We interviewed 2 of them. We made an offer pending the background check and reference to all the background checks are done, so it's just background check at this point. To a gentleman, Jacob is his name, and everything goes well with the background check, which we assume it will. He will be starting March 5th, right in time for the roof season. So real exciting. Seems like he's going to be a really good fit. Local guy.
And just to remind you, when does the other new person begin?
March 8th. Yeah. So couple of new exciting people in March. We'll get both of them to a board meeting to say it will be at some point. And the mower. Maybe we'll have them riding the mower into the park. We'll celebrate all of it. Lots of exciting things. But nothing more exciting than this, and that is that Carrie will be on. She's going to go visit Mickey and Minnie for a week.
All right.
Leaving us like that, finding some sunshine. And then I'm going to go find sunshine in Arizona for a couple of days after she gets back. So, what's up? Right there.
Spring training baseball.
Spring training, and my daughter goes to college down there. So that's called a win-win.
That's a win.
So, I'm taking my one daughter who's a baseball fan to visit my other daughter who's down there. Everyone lives in Happy Car. And that is it for staff report.
Nice. Moving on to the comprehensive plan programs.
Oh, are there any committee reports?
Oh, sorry, committee
It's okay.
reports. Beg your pardon.
Does anybody need?
Forgive me, I'm gonna keep pointing the screen up just to make sure Matt doesn't try to buzz in. Not being on a comprehensive plan reports. Some interesting updates here, and some that have updated since last I sent this memo. Lake properties, we received permission from the Fish and Wildlife to replace and remove the signage at the 3 lakes that have our logos. We don't want to just take them out, but there are some out there, particularly at Deer Lake, that just makes it look like it's our park. We want to make sure the signage for the public is more clear. We want to give them options to really kind of know who to contact and different things. When people get frustrated, they end up calling our front desk, thinking that we know how to stop the jet skis on the lake or so at the very least, we can start taking down some of ours and updating it a little bit. They're still gonna work on theirs as well, but okay. But this update, and let me pull up the actual email, came since you guys were there. This was from the Rob at the Department of Fish and Wildlife. They heard back from the permitting people and they are moving forward in the very short term to get rid of the gangway and the concrete footing, which is a huge safety issue. They asked for our help, which Tom offered to let him and his group go out there and help move some of that around. They're going out this week to get a look and getting the permitting working. One of the things he asked is, do we want to take the dock in? And I said, well, it's not really our call, it's not our dock. And so, but if you're looking for our recommendation, the dock should be removed. That I can ask the board if they want to have an opinion. So obviously it's not our decision, but the question for you guys is, would you like to make a recommendation if you think that the so there's two docks now. There's the brand new one that the Department of Fish and Wildlife put in. And then there's the old one, which has some safety issues, even beyond the game plate. There's a sagging corner. Tom can describe this better. The main game plank has some issues. The value of that dock is swimming. I mean, for the couple months of the summer. And the other safety issue that Tom pulled out the other day was the buoy line, which apparently has 1,000 fish hooks in it, from the fishermen losing their hooks in it.
You're talking about something, is that connected to, it's not anywhere near the dock, you're just talking about the outside. That's what I meant. Yeah.
You hung up on after line.
Right.
So the way it will work now is if they take out the gangplank and the concrete, that if the water's in, the kids will have to swim out to hop up on the dock. That's the way we're looking at it. So it'd be a floating dock a little bit out there. Because these are our residents, I think they just kind of want our opinion. Because they're not swim, they don't care about swimming. That's the thing. They're fishing their wildlife. This is not, they have no interest in the swimming dock. But do we? That's really the question. Do we think it's good enough to leave the main dock out there as a?
I do have an interest in it because I'm always pro families and kids and what they're doing, looking at it through a kid's eyes. You know, and I'm a lake guy. There are lakes all the time, a variety of different lakes. And those little docks are used more than anybody can imagine, whether it's sunbathing or just jumping on, you know. And my thought is this, that once you take something away, you can never get it back. And as long as it's not an immediate threat to anyone, which I don't really think that is, it's something that kids and families will use and can do. So my suggestion would be leave it.
I agree. I completely agree. If it had, even if it only has, 2 more years of usable life, that's 2 more years of usable life. As long as it's not unsafe, as long as it's not unsafe, that there's nothing underneath it that might, hurt a kid. I think it's fine. Can we remove the buoy line though, if we think that the buoy line is unsafe?
No, the reason the buoy line went in after we took over the lane was they're swimming off the dock.
Right.
Then they're exposed, and then you got all boats going
Right.
through, and so that's why that it's tough because now it's a designated swimming area.
Right.
Gary brought up back here a while back. We need no lifeguard on duty signs.
We should have not just from a
So
standpoint.
my only thing, if the dock is left, I think that we should tell Fish and Wildlife that they need to provide a ladder to get on that dock. They have a ladder. There used to be a ladder on the outside.
Mhm.
Basically slipped in and broke and sunk, and it's no longer. But if you put one in, I think it just slips. It's just a universal slip-in style.
So are there still?
Yeah, there's just like a cavity that they slip in.
Okay.
I don't know if that's still in production for that brand of dock, but from the shore side, if you have one, I mean, I think the kids, most part, are gonna wade. They got to swim to the dock, and they wade to it most of the time, and they climb up the ladder. That would be my recommendation if it's gonna stay. Just get access to.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned yesterday, I think it was you or it was Carrie, about maybe seeing it with the Department of Fish and Wildlife together with the Parks and Aquatics Foundation, whose mission is parks and swimming.
Right.
And seeing that I know the Aquatics Foundation's a little busy raising money for another project. This might be a smaller project, but they could raise some money to help fix up that dock. And make it, because it may have a couple years left, but if a little bit of TLC, it might have longer. You know, if that one corner that sags can be fixed and some of the planks can be bolted back. Yeah, there's a little bit of TLC that could happen. I don't think it would take a lot of money. Fish and Wildlife aren't going to spend that money. I think that's
Right.
there. So I think it would take an outside organization like that. So I might just see if we can start a conversation between them and see if it goes anywhere. Because that might be a nice option. So.
I thought what Eric said was spot on too. And I used to live a mile away for a handful of years, and every time I'd go there with nice weather, there's a ton of people swimming at the dock. So as long as it's not a huge safety issue, it seems like, yeah, everything Eric said. I mean, once you pull it out, it's just that much harder to get back unless it's dilapidated.
In maybe kind of trying to sweeten it for the foundation to get involved, is that something that Boy Scouts could take on this?
I don't know if they're quite as active as they used to be. You know what I mean? Because they used to redo the canoes and a variety of service projects, but I'm not seeing that population like it used to be. But I'll bring it up with Marnie and the foundation and see if that's something they want to do. I think they would, honestly, because a lot of those people swim in the local lakes a lot.
It's a low hanging fruit item that I think could make a nice impact in the community. Heck, if they want to spend the money and actually replace the game plan that's being taken out, that would also be nice. I mean, they really could do the other part, which is replace what's being taken out. You know, Department of Fish and Wildlife are just taking it out to get rid of the safety issue, but they wanted to replace it. A nice functional game plan.
Now
Can we? We can't, can we?
We can't, but if we put Fish and Wildlife with
Oh,
an
I see what
outside
you're
partner,
they could lead the way, but I mean, the regulations now, you can't build a dock anymore. That's not see-through or
interested.
the plant life I mean, they changed a lot of regulations and it's hard to do anything around the water.
And I think also knowing that dock most likely has a finite number of years left in it, I wouldn't want to spend any organization to spend a whole lot of money. But something like a ladder, some lower cost items to make it more accessible, I think that's totally in line.
Would it not be partially grandfathered in since part of that structure still there?
There's no grandfathering.
No.
When it comes to water anymore, you touch it, it's pretty much gotta be up to code. I mean, they had to get an exception to get the dock built the way that the one they installed is.
The new one.
Yeah, because it was a foot wider than what Island counties do. And they're like, those rules aren't in any other county we ever deal with. So I mean, it just, the process was just.
Interesting.
Well, isn't it the state's overall goal to get rid of all docks?
No, because I mean,
No.
the dock they install, it's to load onto a boat. So it's a launch and retrieve dock.
Mhm.
The state doesn't have any swimming docks. That's not their. They made that quite clear that
I think that, yeah, but to your point, Jennifer, I think they're trying to get rid of styrofoam underneath the docks. Once again, I'm a lake person. I know Lake Watkins work consistently. Big regulations. Yeah, anything touching that water, you gotta go through the nth degree.
I mean,
Well, yeah.
when this project came up, I asked them specifically, like, we extend, and I've been asking since we took the property over, we extend something to stabilize the shore to that chunk of concrete. And they were like, no. That, they would have protected that, it would have collapsed. Would be a situation, but it's just shoreline, I mean, they said it. You want the shoreline to erode like it's going to. Okay,
Brian, you want me to speak to the pool thing or just where we're at? And we're basically in a holding pattern, but looking at certain items. Specifically design items that may or may not raise the total amount, total cost. Brian, feel free to add on, but basically going through item by item, looking at little things to see if we can pull off good aesthetics.
Yeah.
While staying within the budget.
We're in the polishing stage, I
Yeah.
would say. There's a few big things like moving the reception desk over, some things that the committee's still looking at, but I mean, it's in a nice stage now, like, yeah, fireplace in the lobby and things like that that are. I actually got out to visit William Shore Pool this weekend. So went down the weekend, so I didn't get a meeting with the bosses, but that was kind of nice. They kind of gave me, the person there gave me quite an extensive detailed tour, which was nice. So that's the same pool that ARC designed. Which, by the way, you have to go through two doors, two separate doors to get to the locker rooms in that one. That's one of my concerns that we fixed, I think, was how easily the locker rooms were going to be accessed in our pool.
It's been my concern all along too, because they keep talking about, they come back to the wristband idea. Oh, you can just put wristbands on, and I'm like, no,
No,
that's not what we want.
no, you want to know who's in your locker room.
Yeah.
You want to know who's in your locker rooms. So that was a fun experience.
Are there gonna be any more public meetings? Like one more to share the final design? Okay.
As we get into CD, it was supposed to be in February, but we hit the pause.
Right.
And things are kind of, there's a learning curve to the transition between phases too. The difference between DD and CD was blurry for us. And so right now, what'll happen is next meeting in March, the board will discuss the idea of reactivating the project. In other words, approving them to move on to the CD portion. Which I think at that point, we'll have the bond dates a little closer as far as when the money's going to happen. At that time, once we get going back into it, I'm guessing probably April or so, we'll have at least one, if not two. I think there's supposed to be two more public meetings to talk about things. So,
And what is the width of the lane lines? Does anybody know?
yeah,
We're seven, it was 7-2, but now it's
7.5.
with a little extra. Yep, it's actually bigger than, turned out a little bit bigger than we thought it would be, which is good.
Yeah, initially it was 7. What's 7?
And I think what the other thing is,
Couple of people
the
acting.
Mirtha pool,
Yeah.
I'm just sold on the Mirtha. I just, the warranty on the loan outside of the cost estimates that Matt's been kind of, putting on paper is that, you spend not that much more for what you're getting. I just think it's going to be a really good long-term investment if that question comes up.
Okay. So 7.5 generous.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So the pool stuff, kind of a quiet month for pool stuff, which with the audit and everything else going on is probably good. Campground though, we're percolating a little bit of campground stuff. It's a project that will never end. I did get hold of Drew Coombs, who was the person at Jay Brennan that we worked with the first time. Him and I think his boss's name is Jim or Steve. Anyways, talked to Drew. Drew was about to head out for a 2-week vacation, so we didn't get very far. Other than for him to say that yes, we'd love to jump back in. We'd love to finish the design portion. It's an easy way and a valuable way to spend the money that you have to spend. We could try to nickel and dime the money other ways, but reality is if we're ever gonna have a campground, these design, we need design documents ready to hand to a bid. So, but now the time's clicking because we have till the end of the year. So for them to get in and to get this work done within the money we have, that's what we need to talk about. So Drew's supposed to be back in the office tomorrow, so probably early next week I'll call him, set a Zoom or something so we can chat about it. So at least it's moving in the right direction. And we do have a new contact for Ivy County regarding our permits, Chloe Benson.
Crickets?
Yes, I requested a sit-down meeting with her because she reached out, saying basically asking if this project was still going and yada yada. And love to talk to you about it. And
Makes me sad that she even asked that question.
so that's up. So yes, crickets. But I'm right now I'm more focused on trying to spend that money. We'll tackle one issue at a time.
So when you do get a response, if you get a meeting in person.
Yeah, definitely. You guys.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you. And that is the end of the comprehensive plan and report. program report.
All right, moving on to new business, commissioning.
Oh, we have some fun stuff to talk about. Fishing agent, as you might remember, we were notified in December that it is a state requirement that we contract with a commissioning agent as part of the pool project. The commissioning agent is basically our representative in the middle of this process to talk about all the technical stuff, the engineering stuff. More on getting into this, because quite honestly, commissioning agent was a foreign term that even some of my project friends had no idea what it was. But I see the value. I really do see the value. So we went out to bid. We got, as you can see down below, 6 different bids. We screened them for what we needed and what was required in this project. And there was a couple that were reasonably close in the screening. One of them was Engineering Economics Incorporated. They go by EEI. Prior to this, when ARC didn't think we'd have to go out to bid, they thought we could just hire someone. They sent me a list of companies, and after we got the bids in and after we had screened it, I went back and cross-referenced to see if any of them were on this list, and sure enough, EEI was one that they had worked on a project with and had nothing but praise about how easy they were. So, and as you can see, their proposal was significantly lower than everyone else's, to which during me and Tom met with them, and that was part of the, making sure they actually were encompassing the entire project with this. But the nice thing, even if we had to do a couple ad services, they're still $20,000 cheaper than the next lowest one. And the fact that they have a working relationship with ARC already, it's kind of a no-brainer that this is a company.
That's a pretty big variance.
Yeah.
Very, and because one of the things in the RFP that we had asked for was number of hours this would take, because we want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. And sure enough, I mean, that's what their rate was just lower. They just weren't charging as much per hour. So kudos to them. And like I said, I would be concerned if I didn't have the recommendation from ARC that this was a reputable. And the projects they had done were aquatic related. Some of the other proposals didn't have as much aquatics experience as these guys had. So I think it's and when we're talking to them, when me and Tom are talking to them, you can tell rather they understand the project. It's like they start talking the aquatic stuff and they know the challenges, the hurdles and all that stuff. So anyways, to that end, what I'm asking for tonight is for authorization to enter into a contract with Engineering Economics Incorporated in the amount of $37,210. I'm sorry, the number of profits wrong. It's $37,240 to perform commissioning services for our pool.
Okay, so I will make a motion to award the commissioning agent
EEC. EEC.
EEI.
EEI to EEI. And I can no longer see the should I do the exact amount or just say not to exceed $37,240?
Yeah.
I get all that? Is that right?
Does that doesn't give you a plus or minus? Then you just.
No, I think this is the cap. And so up to is right.
Up to.
Because if it's less work, then it'll be less than.
Okay.
So it's not a flat fee, it's an hourly fee, so up to $37,240 is right.
Okay.
Right, wanna just say that again?
So I will make a motion to enter a contract with Engineering Economics Incorporated as the commissioning agent for the Aquatic Recreation Center project in an amount not to exceed $37,240.
Second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded that we enter into a contract with Engineering Economics, Inc. as the commissioning agent for the Aquatics Recreation Center in the amount not to exceed $37,240. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Krista, I.
Jake, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is passed.
Well, that was the simple one. Now we'll get to the more complicated one, but just the more time sensitive one. So here's what we have. Pickleball funded through the grant with OCO and $50,000 in pledges from the pickleball community. We went out to design, bid, and we received 4 bids for this project. We interviewed 2 of them, Pacific Landscape Architect out of Bellingham and RWD Landscape Architecture. Tom and Sky and I were the interview panel. After the interview, a reference was contacted. It was a no, there was a clear option here. RWD is also doing the Oak Harbor pickleball courts. So there's the potential of cost savings as far as sharing resources. Tom can also testify. Their presentation just blew us out of the water. It was, they've done pickleball, they know pickleball, they knew to quote the US pickleball guidelines. I mean, they also took the initiative a week before the interview. Instead of meeting with Tom and I to walk the site. So we were able to walk the site, they were able to see it with their own eyes. So they knew that the slope at the end before the trees was going to be a challenge. So they kind of made some proposals on that. So the company's the right company. So in negotiating the fee, they came up and then came up this afternoon. So I apologize, it came late, but I gave you a paper copy. The fee came in and I said, I need to know the fee at the top. In other words, if it's less, great, but it can't be more than. So he gave me a top end fee of $98,000. So I called him up after I got that and I said, seems a little much. Maybe I'm wrong. And I did some research comparing what other cities pay for design versus, 15% is usually a good cap of how much of your design budget, how much of your budget you want to design. This is 20%. Smaller projects have higher percentages because, there's not, you're doing more in the design work. So I talked to him and I said, I don't know that I'm going to get 20% of the cost best. So let's check. And I said, so I'm going to go, they're going to have 3 or 4 options. So I'm going to tell you what these options are. One is you can authorize me up to that $98,000 to enter into a contract with RWD. 2 is that we can lower the cap and say, we're not comfortable over 85,000. And we're just going to be, this is the cap, authorize me to enter a contract up to a lower amount, is what I'm saying. Option 3 is table it till March. And I can go back and try to wiggle the number down before we come back. Downside is right now, the proposal they have has them opening courts next spring. So losing a month isn't going to ruin us. Courts will still open. But obviously, if we can figure it out tonight, then that puts us a month ahead of time. So I think my question for you guys is, tell me where your comfort level is. I think 85,000 is probably where my comfort level is, somewhere in that range as far as what I think design should be. 98 seems like I just kind of went into a car dealership and they're trying to talk me up a little bit. Yes.
Are they doing Oak Harbor currently? Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah, they won the bid to do the design drill.
So Oak Harbor is starting, yes, just like we are.
Yeah, they're actually a little behind us because they're still working out their locations. And I think they're doing 8 courts and not 6.
8 courts.
But very similar project. And he said that there's no consideration for Oak Harbor in his proposal, which means if the timelines do overlap and they are able to share resources, obviously he says that would all down. So, because contractors can do 2 projects on the island instead of 1. Some of the subs could do support. So he also mentioned, and this is something I had never considered before, but I looked into it. KCDA, are we familiar with what KCDA is? It's a thing that school districts use, but it's a state, they go out and basically get bids for things, and you can use them as the bidding agent so that you don't have to go out to an open bid. They basically get guaranteed rates for bidding. So, for instance, I used them a couple of years ago to buy $50,000 in weight removal because they had bidded it out, and I could just go out and just pick one of their people and get they basically do the bidding portion for you. That would also save a lot of money out of this, because if we're not having to go to an open bid, I'm not sure we're going to do that. I'm just simply saying that these are the kind of things that, because he's been doing this for a lot of years, he goes, I know how to save some money as we move along when there's opportunity within the rules, obviously, within the state rules. But for tonight's purpose, the questions are 3. 2 more, really. Do you want to authorize me up to a limit you're comfortable with to enter into a contract which will get done over the next few weeks and get this project going? Or would you rather I go back and get that firmer number to come back in March's meeting so that, we've got the haggling out of the way? Either way, there's gonna be haggling. The only question is if you're gonna authorize me to spend the money up to that point, or if, you wanna wait till March. I don't really have a preference.
Just to be clear, they're saying up to 98,000.
Yes, that is it wouldn't be a penny more is what he would say. He goes, it's gonna be less. He goes, he doesn't know how much that's, which I said, well, I'm not there at 98. I said, we're talking in a $500,000 project, 10,000, 15,000 isn't gonna make or break us. But there's something in that, it just seems like they could make this a little.
Yeah, and I'm a little more concerned, like if there's going to be changes, I think that's gonna be more where we're getting into materials and labor, and whereas this should be able to be firmer.
What's our,
But it can be if we wait till March. The part of this is that we interviewed them last week and they had to get the numbers for this board meeting tonight. And so that was part of the discussion was that, I'm getting, and he has to get this also includes the survey and the geotechnical work, which is separate contractors. So we had to get numbers from those guys. So it's not just the design. It's not just the pictures. It's also doing the permitting. It's doing, it's a project manager for the project that they provide. So there's a lot of advantages beyond just because, obviously 90-some thousand for design seems like a lot, but they do a lot of the busy work, as you can see, because he lays it out quite professionally in there. So as far as what they do, if you set a cap, I would say my recommendation is the cap would be somewhere around 85,000, meaning that I'm not authorized to spend any more than that. It shakes it down about 13,000 from what they're proposing. We need to go lower than that if you're that comfortable, or if you're not comfortable talking numbers right now.
what's the project budget? Budget?
If the pickleball foundation comes through with their 50,000, we have a little over 500,000 to be exact. We have 452,000 in grant money, which is guaranteed. And so what we told in the RFP, we told them that the total budget was 475, which gave us some cushion, a contingency cushion for issues. So they were told that we only have 475,000 to spend on this part. And until we go out to bid for the build, we have no idea. I mean, I'm optimistic looking at other projects around here, but that's obviously always a mystery.
So Oak Harbor's behind us. They haven't started this process yet.
They are just about, they've done, I don't know how far they've gotten now, but all I know is that Don's the representative, that they haven't picked a location yet. And and they've got like their locations they're looking at around neighborhoods, so they've got noise issues, and they've got, and I think they might be looking at 2 locations maybe now, but there's still discussions of that. Whereas we say we want it here, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
And it's in our park, so it's.
I was just thinking comparison.
Yeah. I think our courts will open before theirs. That's right.
I mean, comparison in cost.
Oh.
And what they're charging.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
If Oak Harbor was going down the same road or not, they had that 30%.
Do they know, kind of what our budget has been? Are they aware of that?
What do you?
What is it, 500,000? Are they aware that that's the amount that we have for the project?
No, they think it's 475,000.
These people,
Who's these?
the people who are getting for the design work.
Yes. Yeah, because that's what we put in the RFP, good forces. Good, which gave us a 5% contingency to allow for issues. So they know that that's the number that we have.
Well, for me, if they had to put this together quickly,
Mhm.
and if I was in their shoes, I would overestimate, I suppose.
Yes.
So if it's a month more that would be my recommendation, is give it the month with the express, concern that you drop this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Bring it down to 8. Yep.
Bring back a firm number in March.
Thank them for pulling this together.
That's all.
Yeah, it's hard to find these numbers. I may call Brian, who's the parks director for Oak Harbor, and just a specific question. Because I did go online and try to find they have the RFP out, but I don't see where they entered into a contract with them. I'm sure they did. Yeah, okay, I'm perfectly fine bringing this back in a month. And,
And I don't know about Squim either, since that seems to be one of our go-tos, you know, looking at their courts.
yeah, I was out there this weekend too.
Yeah.
And there's, yeah, it's interesting. Cool.
I mean, just communicating with them, like, is this standard? Did they come through, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, good.
Do they have a portfolio, online or lists all the other potential pickleball courts they've done?
I didn't bring it in with me, but in their proposal, they have listed all their projects that are similar.
Is that something you could easily put on the SharePoint that we could just look at?
Yeah. Sorry.
All right, any other discussion on pickleball? Right, then shall we move on to the comprehensive plan?
Just keep getting bigger. So just a reminder that this is just draft night, so we don't have to dig into the weeds tonight unless you want to. The goal is that with this draft in your possession, you now have light reading, and that any comments you want to make, you can still make them over the course of the next several weeks. With the March 20th board meeting, I put March 15th as kind of the deadline for receiving feedback. Which actually is pretty late, so sooner would be better. I also intend to get a copy of this to the stakeholders, as we talked about, letting them have their crack at it. But I will point out a few things.
We update the pictures.
Which picture don't you like?
The one that has the map of all of the things on South Whitby
Oh,
in our district.
I think she's talking about these pictures.
Oh,
Those
photos.
pictures too. I mean, I love Christy. But she's no longer coaching on the island, and that's a really old picture, and that's not one of our facilities. It's
But
the
it's a pool.
island athletic pool.
It's a pool. You don't know that. I just put South Whitby Pool up top.
We all
Just
know
kidding.
what pool that is.
She did say she'll be back this summer.
Okay, yes, I will replace that picture.
We should still not have a picture of island athletic on our comprehensive plan.
We're just being a good neighbor. Okay. I'll point out a couple things that I think, because a lot of this is stuff you've already looked at. A lot of it is quite detailed. We won't get into all of this. First of all, let me emphasize, this is still a draft. There's work to be done here. I'll point out some of the points. There's just so many hours in the day, and to polish this as much as it needed to be polished, just wasn't going to happen in the time allotted. I'm going to skip down to page 21, which is really where some of the work. Also, if the guiding principles are going to change,
Right.
we have them. I know. So, all right, sorry for the scrolling, but when we get there, it's 20. Okay, 21. So, current estimate of park needs, page 21. This would be something that I'm giving you the pages that I think would be good for you to kind of focus on. So, you're not reading 53 pages and read 53 pages, but here are the current needs, and these were based on some of the feedback, but they're also kind of my interpretation of feedback. So, there's room to get more input here. Things, some of these also were carries over from years past, like generic things about accessing hiking trails and open space. So this is a page that I think I would pay a little attention to. And then as we get into the looking forward section, we're going to get into specific objectives. And this is where in the last comp plan, which had more time to be developed, I assume Matt did a lot of LWCF grant, and we're going to get $400,000. And he was very specific with how much. I think we just don't, there's no way to get those numbers. And it's not required. As looking through the requirements for what RCO and the funders want, they don't ask for the specifics. They just want to know, what are you thinking? So some of the objectives, again, we can add or subtract based on the feedback we received. But the first one I mentioned was the development of a community center gym. I don't know if in 6 years that's realistic, because we kind of have a big project going on now, but it is a need. And so we're leaving it in there. And also, please remember, one of the main reasons for a comp plan is to secure outside funding. So we want to list things in there that the community wants, even if it's not realistic that maybe you get there. The issues at the lake, specifically.
But we know some of that's not going to happen.
Correct. But what if funding came over where it could happen? What if there was funding came over where we could partner with the Department of Fish and Wildlife for a retaining wall at Gosling? Or the big one that people talked about in the survey was play areas. We have one great play area, but what a great spot at Lone Lake if we can work with the Fish and Wildlife to
Right.
come up with funding for
Right.
a play area there.
I guess my point, and this is a detail we not to.
Mhm.
There will never be a retaining wall.
Okay.
At Gossip,
Anyway,
any lake.
It's
Just like, so,
That's neat one to take out.
it's not a question of funding, it's a question of
their mentality.
philosophy.
Yeah, they're just, they want nature to do its thing.
So,
Well, and to be honest, that was something from the last one that I did not, was not a public input thing. In other words, I left that in there, but. So that's something we can take out without being inconsistent to our public.
I don't usually make these requests, but I think I will in this case. May I please have a printed copy? Black and white is, or to
Um,
do line to, actually write it.
yes, I have a paper guide.
Yeah.
Sorry, the binding on these aren't
Yeah,
perfect. so
I don't,
have a
I
couple.
just,
These are the copies that I'll also make available, so.
thank you.
I have one more.
Yeah,
I'm doing mine in previous one. Go
All right.
ahead.
So that's awesome. And like that, they're not perfectly bound, but they are.
it seems like also like the gym, for example, conducive to getting that because it's part of the swimming pool plan,
Yeah.
greater plan, more apt to get those grants that we're looking for.
Yeah, we show A, success.
Yeah.
And B, we know where it's going. We're not gonna be talking about that. So scouring through these pages and being critical, I'm gonna do this too. Like I said, there's work to be done on this plan. Community parks, obviously, campground stuff. I left campground in there because it's not built yet. Soccer field for year-round play, however that looks. Connected. Oh, here's one that I wasn't sure where we left off. And this would have been great to have Matt here, but Matt was involved in this. This was from the last one. Now, trails is a huge thing in our feedback. People love the trails. It's an important part of what the community wants. So in our last one, we had a development of a connected trail. And I know Matt talked a little bit about some of the restrictions and easements and different things that were a problem. So I left it in there for now, but I don't know if that's something long-term. I don't know if it's the same issue as the retaining wall.
No, I'm glad you're leaving it in.
Okay.
Yeah, because the county needs to know that they need the extra push.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well aware of where that's headed.
Agreed, and it is not a 6-year plan, but it could be 10 or 15 or 20.
Well, and it's by far what people love their trails here. And guy over there has something to do with that. So anyways, I'm going to go through great details, but I will point out the last thing on here. And this was a request from the last board meeting. I did create, and this is not a final draft by any means, but I created a tentative staff plan for the next 3 years as to what staffing would have to look like as we lead up to the opening of the aquatic center. So again, that was requested to put in this comp plan, so I did. Not saying that's a final version, we could change as time progresses, but this is what we're looking at for now. So that's in there for you to look at.
Okay, and again, what's the deadline?
March 15th at the latest, because I gotta make any changes to the final draft to have it out to you for that board meeting on the 20th. So.
So under,
Give me a page. See a page?
Okay.
Okay.
Page 25, please.
Okay.
So the addition of, the acquisition, property acquisition, the second to last one. Improving community property structures, facilities, trails.
Yes.
Major element
Acquisition. Oh, thank you.
So that was added, and
Yes.
I thought it was interesting if. And we're nowhere with either one of them, so shouldn't they both be in there or neither?
Yeah, good point. Maybe neither, I don't know. there was I don't know which, I forget which it was, but there wasn't a plan 6 years ago, an acquisition plan for a piece of property. Obviously, tonight we'll be talking about another piece of property. And maybe it should be more generic. Maybe it should just be acquisition of land to, expand services to our community. We can do it so that it's more generic. That's
It seems like generic is the way to go, just because these things tend to pop up as opposed to, right now if the person we got picked a wonderful piece of property said, hey, we're changing ownership or we want to sell. Those kind of things can come up pretty quickly.
Good. Make that change. So then going on to the appendix, this is where it gets really kind of complicated. And I spent some time with the NRPA person. NRPA 6 years ago, the guidelines that we used were pretty straightforward. They would give you a standard. Community this side should have X amount of basketball courts, X amount of this, X amount of that. And we can just simply do a simple comparison. We have this, we should have this. Here's our grade. Well, they've changed all that. And now they do what's called a metric. So we'll get to that in a second. But the needs assessment is pretty straightforward. If you look at it now. Oh, I didn't include the survey results. That was something different that I figured. I didn't put every single result, but I put the generic questions so people could kind of see because that is our biggest piece of feedback.
So given that the survey responses were extended an additional couple of weeks, does this need to be further updated or is this it?
This is it. It closed on January 31st.
Okay.
So we have not taken survey results since then.
Okay, thank you.
Level of service determined, and all these little categories we're dealing with here are ones that are required by RCO and the other funders. So this is not optional that we put this kind of stuff in. But here is this little metrics here is what the NRPA uses now. So now instead of saying a size community of ours should have 5 basketball courts, what they say is everyone does a survey as they're in who they are. And then they give you the results to compare against other similar size organizations. So if you look at this first box here, here we are, South Whitney, the ones they compared us to, and what they sent us to us. I gave them our information, and then she goes, "What are you looking for?" I gave her what we were looking for. She then sent me back the data, which is nice. See the second column or the third column here says populations less than 20,000 and that are a special district. Next column is the ones that are just a special district, and then the last one are ones that are just less than 20,000, rather than a city or a district. As you can see, the number of responses in the first one's only 15, so that's not giving us a real great sample. If you go less than 20,000 as a population, your sample's a little bigger, and then it just kind of tells you, okay, so the first one, park operation, how much we spend per acre of parkland. Well, you do our budget, we spend about $1,136 per acre, and you look at what other populations of less than 20,000, we're a little low there. But as you scroll through these, you'll see more interesting data that kind of tells you how many staff you have for the size you are, the number of parks per people, parks acres, trail miles was a nice one. Makes us look good there, I think too. Then you get about halfway down to these ones, and it kind of changes, and it says now they want to know how many, and this is a little similar to what the other way we did it, which was take your population, 16,905, and how many facilities do you have in these areas per your resident. So in our case, I said we had one community center, and so we have one community center per 16,905. And then you go to the far column and say, okay, well, it looks like other jurisdictions probably have like 2. So it just kind of gives you a comparison of who you are. It's interesting. It gives us some data. If we go back and say, listen, we don't have a teen center, and most jurisdictions our size do. And we have a chance to go get funding to support teen programs. Okay, well, this helps show the data that most people in our situation do have, or an amphitheater or ice rink or whatever the possible project is. So this is the new way the NRPA is doing. It was a lot more complicated to unwind, but I feel like at the end it kind of came out. So have fun reading that. The quantity criteria is very similar to what we did before. I kind of left this in the template. This was kind of one of the templates used last time. I just updated it. It was interesting. This was kind of what the NRP format last time. I still think it's kind of applicable to kind of see, you know, what our capacity is in different things. So, and then is that? Oh, yeah. Then this is just the count of the entire district of different facilities and parks, all of that. That's very similar, just updated from last time. And then the parks metrics for 20,000 again, just kind of quantifying in a different way. This is a lot of data. Just talking about how many of different programs that we have to offer to the community. And I'm scrolling through this relatively quickly because you can take this with you and feel free to ask me questions, but I'm trying to give you an outline of what you're going to be looking at. And then this is the acquisition prioritization matrix, which you guys can do, but was done about 14 years ago by the district. And then the last section here, the capital improvement projections, starts out with items, just that already in our budget that we're going to be doing capital project there. And then this is something to look at too, which is page 51, because this was kind of my ballpark, which was, these are some of the projects that we're going to be looking to do. Some of them are set, pickleballs, fence replacements, lower bathroom renovations. Some of them, and the aquatic recreation center. But some of them is good down towards the bottom, connected trail network. That probably isn't going to happen now that Krista said that. In 2028, or synthetic turf. If we're ever going to do turf, it'd be towards the end of our 6-year plan. So I ballparked some things that, that we may try to get done. As I said before, our comp plan is a pool. And then we've got 2 or 3 years after that to look at some other projects. But really, we can't bring 10 different projects right now. We could kind of focus it on the big ones we have in front of us. So anyways, any questions or thoughts now? Otherwise, I'm just gonna leave this in your hands and trust that I'll get into the hands of those from our community partners.
I had, with the community partners, stakeholders, however you want to refer to them.
Yep.
I think it would be very beneficial if we go back to the section where it talks about funding sources. See, I know I'm getting to a page number.
Remember?
24. So for all of those objectives and their funding plans, where they reference CDBG, WWRP,
Yes.
LWCF, can those acronyms be defined, please?
Yes.
So the first time they're used, define those acronyms.
Very good.
But again, does that have to be spelled out?
They do ask for, how are you planning to fund this? So at this point, the best sources we have are the core programs here.
Yeah.
Like I know, for instance, the community center gym, Matt talks about trying to get a CDBG grant for. All right. So they do ask for that. That is something they don't ask for the numbers, but they do want you to know, not just list a bunch of fun projects, but okay, how you can pay.
Have you thought about what you're funding?
Yes. Yeah, they want to do the time to do it. I think there is value there, but I think a little key to start with an acronym key.
Yeah, if that could be, right, just. Yeah, the second part of that specific objectives
Yes.
paragraph.
Yeah, I'll put it right there. I think it's
Super helpful.
Thanks.
Darn acronyms.
No, I get it. Well, when you live in acronyms, sometimes you forget that other people don't.
Absolutely.
What do you mean you don't know what the WWRP is? All right. So you guys comfortable with that? Any comments you want to make now, or you want to just?
I started working on it on a plane today, but then
Oh.
hit turbulence and I said I can't do this. So
I looked over
So I-
it while Little was napping, but I definitely. In a couple weeks. Is there another hard copy or that's it for now?
I can make it. Easy. I'll be lost. Yeah,
I appreciate
just
that.
don't leave until I do.
Okay, so if we're done with that, we can move on to the financial policy.
You know what? It's actually in here, so it's not too far, but I have to dig it out. Okay, financial policy, this is a pretty straightforward, simple one. As part of our bond rating, working with DA Davis and Jim Nelson, he reviewed our financial policies, which we sent him, and his only comment back to us was that he thinks it would be advantageous for us to write something in there in our policy that there will be a 2-year financial audit every 2 years, which is going to be required going forward anyways. It's just putting it in writing. So in the introduction of our policy manual 1.0, which talks about finance policies, I am recommending adding the sentence, the South Liberty Parks and Recreation District will undergo 2-year financial audits with the state of Washington every 2 years. So a simple sentence which meets that criteria. And since it's a policy manual thing, and I will be bringing a lot of policy stuff to you guys over the next few months, but for now, I'm just bringing one sentence. Favorable looking.
So, okay, so all right.
Yep.
It's not redundant because it's a 2-year financial audit looking back, and we will do that every 2 years.
Yes.
So it's not redundant.
Right, because we could do a 2-year audit every 3 years. I just took that. That's what it is.
Thank you.
I have the same problem where it seems like I'm saying the same thing twice, but
If there's no discussion, I would entertain. Motion, there we go. Motion.
So I will make a motion to adopt the financial policy that states that the South Whidbey Parks and Recreation District will undergo 2-year financial audits with the state of Washington every 2 years.
Do we need specificity in the particular 5.0 introduction, or is that sufficient?
I think that was sufficient. Because you leave it as a blank check that I can put in wherever I want, which is fine. I mean, you can say if you want more specific, you can say. I mean, I'm fine with it where it is. It's going to go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or a second?
I'll second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the financial policy that states the South Whidbey Parks and Recreation District will undergo 2-year financial audits with the state of Washington every 2 years. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Jake, I.
Krista, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes.
Thank you. Have a statement for that.
And on to a discussion of the property at 5555 Maxwell Road.
All right, well, this is our last agenda item of the night. Staff were contacted by Mark Dodge and Terry Deacon regarding the 16-acre property that Terry owns at 5555 Maxwell Road, which is right in front of our property there. I'll show you a picture in a second. They were doing an initial outreach to see if the Parks District would be interested in discussing purchasing the property from them. In addition to the property, there is a 2,542 square foot, 3-bedroom, 3-bath residence. Come with that, obviously. After having a preliminary conversation with Jennifer, I reached out again to Terry, found out that she would only be interested in selling if we agreed not to take down trees and develop the undeveloped portion of the property. She didn't have problem with us further developing the portion of the land that's already developed. She also mentioned that she'd be willing to discuss only selling part of the property. For instance, if we were only interested in buying the developed portion or the undeveloped portion, she'd be willing to discuss that, although worth noting that it is currently a 1-parcel piece of property. In exchange, she would be willing to take less money for the property. In other words, for our consideration not to develop that undeveloped portion, she would take a lower price than what she, be on the market if she just sort of sell it. No financial specifics were discussed, however. An obvious value of this property would have been to provide additional parking to the park or to the aquatic recreation center. I also had a very brief conversation with ARC to see if possibility of moving the septic off the hill to that piece of property, because we had talked to them, I think, about that initially anyways. However, with that off the table, The value would be you potentially could add some trails there. There is a house which possibly can be used for offices or programming, you know, so you can have teen programs, or very close to teen programs. Right next to the school. Or they are, while they don't want the property developed, they are not opposed to trails or other things going on in the. Again, just a discussion at this point. Terry also emphasized she's not in a hurry. There's no rush to this. I told her I'd get back to her when I knew something. You know, the decision for the board, is it worth pursuing at this time? We obviously have a lot of money tied up into some big things right now. So there needs to be, I think, a clear advantage, but logistically, and I'll show you the overview if you don't know what I'm talking about. This red square here, I mean, this is Max Welton and this big piece of property, and this is our community park, baseball fields are here, and so it obviously, you know, just a jigsaw puzzle approach. Clearly is a piece of the puzzle of our park that we don't own right now. And this is the developed portion she was talking about with the house. Her father passed away, I think, in November. So that's why she inherited the property. And it's she doesn't live on the island. The house, I think, is used as a weekend getaway, if I recall at this point. So
Looks like the developed area is maybe 3 acres.
Yeah.
2, 3.
Depends on how you look at it. That whole property was logged around the time I started here, around 25 years ago. So there's trails. He used to drag, he'd go out and cut firewood and drag wood back and stuff like that. So are you familiar with like the conservation easement of properties? What's the rate of, it was at 50% of value? Just depends.
So I'd have to dig in deeper to find out whether or not she can even put those sort of constraints on a purchase.
Right.
If it were a private purchase, she can.
Yeah.
Given that we're a special district, maybe there's something that could be done there. But I think the big thing is trying to determine what is the market value of that property. If we picked that up and moved that somewhere else, it would be significantly more. Its proximity is not desirable to a single family.
Sure.
Yes.
And obviously, if we could take this portion right here and turn that into a parking for the pool and potentially a community center gym, that would be, or even the current situation now when it gets busy in the spring and summer, that would have huge value. I think fighting for that property would have a tone in my voice, because it'd be like, yeah, that would be wonderful, but
And my idea, when we initially talked, was like, you know, if you could take 8 acres and preserve half of it.
Yeah.
The the wooded half. The rest of this is a lot thinner. And I mean, that right there is right where you park right between the 2 baseball fields. So just
So
looking
you're
at it,
saying by the house or the other side?
I'm saying if she's gonna give it to you, let's say at 50%, because 8 acres of it, the heavily forested portion, you're never gonna touch, it'll be trails. That would be very useful for.
is this thick, I mean, is this thin enough to put real trails in?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I've never walked.
Yeah.
Or we could get that disc golf course in there.
I mean,
Just flying on the Maxwell.
it's kind of like the property we got from when we got trust land. We got 40 acres on the other side. There's restrictions on that. You can only do passive recreation. So maybe that's something, hey, we're not going to cut down property, but could we do, passive recreation? Like to get a golf disc or something like that, because
This golf actually is an interesting thought there. I mean, if you can,
yeah.
it's thin enough to be, it's the comfort.
So anyway, I just know our biggest need still is parking.
Parking,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And if you get that house, and that can become direct offices.
Because we're not gonna have enough staff offices. I mean, there's just not, I mean, that's fine. I mean, they're gonna be nice offices. We're gonna need more space for the overflow staff we're gonna have, so. The thought of the house, but having to consider when the house comes financial upkeep. It isn't like the house is, you're now dealing with roof issues and plumbing issues, electrical issues, and all the things that go with it. So there's a maintenance costs that you have to pick up with this too, that's not insignificant. The only question at this point we have to decide is it interesting enough for us to pursue, or should we go and say,
I think this is definitely more interesting than the one on the highway. The one on the highway, right, with the swale and the wetlands and the being right on the highway and coming
The
out,
access.
having the whole access conversation that we had.
Yeah.
I think this one's far more desirable.
Agreed.
and so then the next step is, what's the right, I mean, Jennifer, you're the real estate person, so you kind of assume you're in this conversation. So, I mean, would the next step be for you and I, and maybe also wants to be part of the conversation, to set up a meeting either in person or virtual, because they're in Seattle, so.
Mhm.
You want to take that step, and then we can hear more, and if she says, hey, because she didn't really define what developed and undeveloped park she didn't mind us developing, like, she might say, listen, 8 acres on the one side, whatever it's been, as Tom says, she's just really big on the trees, there's one trees down, I get that. But
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we did that septic study, the hydrologist was saying that there's a lot of water there. I mean, it didn't seem like that was even remotely, even if it was an option.
yeah, but I think the water is
So-
man-made.
What happened? Years and years ago, he took a bulldozer. He dug a pit right on the property line, right across from those baseball fields
Mhm.
right here.
Yeah.
And it's a very low producing well that he irrigated in his garden. So there's a hole.
That's awesome.
So I mean, I just dug that out, he found very shallow.
Gotta give me some props.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it was. And so there is a lot of underground water moving from this wetland right behind us.
Yeah.
Gravity's taking it from Maxwell Creek. And he just dug down and he just intercepted a high water table, basically.
Yeah, my point behind that just being that it's not valued that way. So we know that. Because originally.
It's not a value as a septic.
Correct, because
consideration.
originally when we were talking pool discussion, that was an option on the table, but, from the
Yeah,
sides of,
they were talking that potentially outside the road.
right, but even that,
But we never,
the studies were showing that the water table was like you're talking about is so.
Yeah.
had a conversation I had with her right after her dad died. She was not wanting to talk about it. The clear trees aren't coming in.
Yeah.
So I think now the dust is settled. I mean, I don't know, maybe there was something in his will, like kind of final wishes type of thing, because, it was one of the things talking with him for 20+ years was, you guys ever are gonna sell, just let us know, before you guys list it. And so.
And I can,
I just, yeah, I think we should definitely pursue it. But to your point, like, if you're not going to put it in a conservation easement and donate it to a land trust or something like that, if you actually want to sell it, it's then not your property. You don't get to say. And I also have faith in whether it's this board or a future board to preserve as many of the trees as possible. But at the same time, get us more parking or
being good students.
being good stewards, but also using the property for the public benefit. That's interesting.
We have that matrix that we used for evaluating property purchase, so maybe that would be something to do before the next. Yeah, sometime.
Right there.
Yeah.
Ever did that? Yeah, there it is.
So there's the one that we do for rating.
Yeah,
Oh.
rating property, yeah.
Yeah.
Did she hint at what she may or may not discount on fair market value?
Actually, we didn't get into prices. I think, because it was just a very preliminary,
Casual.
I just wanted to know what restrictions she would want to put on it. And I think,
Who would wanna live?
I know, I was telling people out from wanting to live
I
there.
do, yeah.
It's not a bad piece of property at all.
it'd make me and Eric's commute a lot easier. Just
Okay.
trying to say, swap.
I'm not saying that I would want that property, but I think there's people that definitely would look at that and go, hey,
Yeah.
I would how this is not a valuable property.
And I think there's two options of the legal right to say we can't do anything with it versus the good faith, you know, give us your word that as a board, you're not gonna, you know, that might be that. But a lot of things we just don't know. Like I said, I've had one conversation with Mark and one conversation with Terry. I think, Jennifer, I think Tom would be very valuable in any meeting with the family because he has
Absolutely.
Is he in a
He
relation-
has the history.
a relationship there. So they like him. So. Anyways, okay, then I'll work with you, Jennifer, to coordinate, over the next few weeks to see if there's definitely, see if they're gonna come up on the island anytime soon, or we'll just do something virtually. So. Well, that is all I got.
I got one more thing.
All right.
Sometime next month, middle of the month, early month, it's Austin's 10-year anniversary.
Oh.
And I was just kind of popped up, they're talking. It'd be nice to do something for him, you know, little plaques. Yeah, just appreciation, I think. You know, it's, we only got so many employees and it's nice to give a thank you for your service
Love that.
like that.
Yeah, we'll add that to the next.
Great idea.
Interview. Can we get,
Do we have a plaque company?
I think she's the new plaque person.
Is it, is the plaque or is it, you know, some sort of a gift or a gift certificate for something that Austin's
What is
really into? Or
14th.
Working.
the board / district could buy a plaque or a certificate with a set of presidents. If we want to do something more than a gift certificate or things like that, it would just have to be us privately donating. So the district itself could do something official like a plaque or something, a pin or something that says, thank you for your service, but
I see a lot of like the fire departments and stuff, you know,
Yeah.
the other public agencies, you know, kind of do that for kind of the big.
I can ask her, we,
I
our
mean, we
little
don't have to.
placards and trophies and
A
whatnot.
plaque, we can,
Yeah.
and then, you know, we can.
I know there's a place off Colby in Everett that does, items like that. But I can ask the fire department where they get theirs too, because they have cool little, looks like a trophy, it's got a little fire truck on it.
yeah, something.
Random
like that.
awards.
Haven't we worked with that place up on the Deep Things? Is that where Peggy got stuff before?
So, yeah, good idea. But
Anyway, just,
I would be in favor of both, so I would pick in my own dough and then like get a plaque, because that has meaning to it.
it also
We
said,
could kind of figure out what would be. I mean, you were easy.
I,
it's pretty easy to do. He's a hunter.
yeah,
Okay.
He's a hunter fish.
Yeah.
He's an outdoorsy guy. That was,
we,
anyway, I just wanted to bring it up because 10 years is kind of a, yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a big thing.
it's, I
I haven't had many such stuff in 10. So.
It's a big deal.
It's another great example. Over the next few months, we'll be talking policies, just kind of going through all of our policies and re-looking at them again. And there's an example. Should we have a staff 10-year, 5-year, yeah. CTAP where I came from, they need pins. So I got a whole drawer full of 5, 10, 15, 20. All right. It was thoughtful, but it was just that kind of thing saying, hey, we're thinking of you. We acknowledge that that you contributed.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So, Carrie, in recognition that you're gonna head out, if you want to get that information to me, I can. I'm down the plaque.
Who it is,
Yeah.
contact.
Yeah. I can note that down, and then if you guys just want to contact me directly, tell me how much you want to contribute, then I can. Does Cabela's seem reasonable, Tom? Or do you have another idea?
That was good.
But that's that. Oh, you're so holy. Yeah. It's really cool.
Awesome. And notice it's all permeable too, that,
All right,
I mean, looks like.
Yeah.
so we are adjourned at 7:31.
And yeah, I think it was all permeable too, all the data material.